Hey, what's up? My name's Craig, and for the past 8 years, I've been working with a company called Jaunty, where we help people overcome their social anxieties and learn new skills for connecting with people using social intelligence information that we've gathered from peer reviewed research, human behavior science, psychology, and anything else we could get our hands on that's actually been backed by science. And we help people overcome obstacles in their social lives, learn to connect with people in all various types of ways, like dating, making friends, getting influence at work, or even networking. And on the 20th of last month, we decided to start a podcast, and we had a conversation where we actually sent out a questionnaire to the community that we service. You know, all the people who have come to our classes and workshops over the years, and they sent us back some information. We talked about the quarantine and how it's affected people's social lives. So this podcast is about how people are dealing with the quarantine, COVID-19, how it's affecting their social lives, and what they're looking forward to the most. And it's also taking our perspectives as social intelligence experts, people who live very full social lives, and how other people can aspire to be this way as well.
Sounds great.
Now it sounds great
Yeah, it sounds great.
with a capital G.
Like Frosted Flakes.
That's great.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing how that marketing worked? How we remember that?
You know,
We should
speaking of Tony the Tiger and saying great, I actually used that in a thread last night in the workshop. I was kind of explaining how threading could work based on, you know, them giving you nothing. And I was like, hey, how's it going? And they said, oh, I'm doing pretty great. I was like, oh, speaking of great. And I went into the thing about Frosted Flakes and Tony the Tiger.
That's awesome. I'm sure they love that. I mean, people that remember that.
Yeah. So I visited home on Friday or last weekend. Like I went down there on Thursday and took my mom down to the doctor in Santa Barbara on Friday. And because I was in Santa Barbara, one of the students is in Ventura, and he drove up and met up with me.
Oh, dope.
And we walked around downtown Santa Barbara for 30 minutes and did 3 opinion openers on people.
Dope. How was it?
It was good. He liked it.
Yeah.
It was helpful. And so we actually did it, and we did it from 6 feet away, you know, masks and everything, and some without masks and stuff like that. So
Good. Yeah.
it's possible, right?
No, it's totally possible. Yeah. I think easing them in the people we have such a weird mix. It's not a weird mix, it's a good mix, but some people, I mean, 2/3 of the people in that class already did class 2 already, you know, because so they already know it. They already did it in the real world a little bit. And so I think delaying that was just something I felt in the moment. I want to, you know, I've been trying to approach more just personally and being nicer and kinder, and you know, the only opportunities are like walks on the street,
Yeah,
at
you
the
get to know your
beach.
neighbors now. That's a cool thing about what's going on right now is I think people are like starting to talk to their neighbors more and getting more of a sense of community from that.
Totally. You can tell that people are starving a bit. I mean, they're starving for connection. I went to the beach with Jason and Casey, my two friends, and it was packed. The beach was packed here in Santa Monica last weekend. It was a beautiful day. We went out, and I brought a tennis ball, and we started playing catch. One of the three of us are a little bit more worried about COVID than the other two, um, and we started playing catch. And then there was a lot of people sitting next to us, and me and Jason we were doing a triangle, but then one of my friends and I got close, and our other friend was farther, and I started throwing this ball closer and closer to this really pretty woman who was by herself on a towel reading. And I just kept getting it closer and closer, and finally like almost hit her. And so she, I was hooking Casey up because I know he's my friend. I knew he was single, and I was like thinking of exactly what they could do and say. She was great, and she grabbed the ball and she gave it back, said something. I think he just said thank you and ran off. But which was kind of a, and I was thinking about all the things that I could have said and how much she probably wanted to speak. I was thinking about little things that you can talk to people about, like, oh, now that you touched the tennis ball and so did I. It's based. But yeah, I think there's all this opportunity to meet people, and I think it's a very weird conundrum because everyone's saying I miss being social and I want to talk to people, but you also get put in this cycle of it's not okay to talk. People don't want to talk. And I don't know if I want to be bothered, and I don't know if I'm scared or not scared to talk with someone.
That's the thing, is like people don't know how to respond. They're literally like, I don't know if I should be scared. I don't know if I should be backing away and distancing from, or if I should answer. And that's where like frame comes in so much. Like if you can show that, this is totally normal, and I'm not concerned with like whether or not this is a dangerous interaction, right? If you're just showing like, hey, I'm talking to you from 6 feet away, like this is totally fine. I think people like will quickly meld into that and be okay with it. And then even from there, you can even get closer if all the circumstances are right. I went to the beach too on Saturday. I went to Pismo Beach with my dad and walked the dog, and it was like 2,000 people there.
Yeah.
It was like 80 degrees out. It was beautiful. It was a bunch of people from the valley. And I saw like 5 masks. Like people did not care. Like I think people are just like so fed up with like not having the freedom and not having the ability to like interact with the world and the people around them, right? That they're just like, well, screw it. I'm just going to risk this because like this is more important to me right now.
Yeah. I mean, my girlfriend made a statement the other day too. She's like, people are not wearing masks anymore. We also went on a hike up in Temescal, and some people had masks, some didn't. And it was kind of almost feeling normal, like normal life a little bit. And so, but I also am hearing a lot of like backlash. And like when I did that survey the other day of what are some things that
oh yeah, I saw that. So yeah, I saw that the other day. You sent out a questionnaire to the alumni community, and well, I guess the full Jaunty community, right? There was a newsletter email, and you were surveying people on how this whole shelter in place and stay at home order has affected people's relationships, right? And how they're feeling about their business relationships, their romantic relationships, their friendships, and stuff like that. That's what I got from it, from what I remember reading on the questionnaire. So what were you going for? Like, what was the your intention in sending that out?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have guesses as to how people are doing, right? A lot of people, I mean, everyone's making a joke about like, oh, people are, couples are having a hard time, or people are saying you're diving deep into yourself, or how is, we make a lot of assumptions, I think, and I had no idea what people are actually going through. I only knew what I was feeling, right? Because for instance, in a relationship or partnership, my relationship started right before the pandemic, and I was very thankful that I had it, and I had this empathy of people that were more isolated or didn't have someone. I didn't know what they were going through, but I also was very thankful, and this is like a next level up if you think about it, is like I was thankful that, hey, I'm glad I don't have kids during this, but I don't know if that's a good thing or not, right? I don't know if someone's also saying, hey, I'm glad that I'm single because of this, or hey, I'm glad that I don't have to hang out with friends, or I'm happy about reaching out with other friends. It's hard to tell overall where people are, what people were feeling of how the pandemic changed how they feel about being social. So I wanted to create a form to where people we can get a feel for some of these things. And I tried to create some of the easiest questions so that people wouldn't drop out during the form, and kind of had some help with my friend who's a behavioral scientist to formulate some of it and lead people a little bit to help them. And so we got about 60 responses of people filling out the full form, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good sample size for doing the whole thing. And yeah, the first question was this one. It was, during the pandemic, I enjoyed reaching out and speaking to people I have not spoken to in a while, and it was
Yeah.
rated from a scale 1 to 10. So yeah, what's been your experience before maybe we go into the results of
Yeah.
reaching out? Some people are overwhelmed with people getting in touch with them. Some people have been enjoying it, creating closer friends or weakening other friends. How's
So
this experience
yeah,
been
so
with you?
obviously before the pandemic, like I've been single, um and I live by myself. So um but so obviously I don't have like a roommate to just hang out with, and or somebody who's just constantly there. And that definitely initially took like made me feel like this kind of sucks, right? But I think because I have more free time now and more time to to explore my relationships and stuff, I feel like it's had some pretty interesting effects. And one thing I noticed is in the realm of dating, I've been still dating throughout this whole pandemic, and meeting people, going for walks, and then coming, hanging out at my house and having dinner or whatever, and everything that comes with that. And I think that like the people that I've seen, like that I've consistently like dated, I've become a much more intimate much quicker. Like I feel like the relationships between us has become much more intimate much quicker. And I think that might be partially because of the fact that like people aren't they're like kind of starving for connection, as well as the fact that like you're not really competing for that much attention. And so people it tends to slow things down, and people start thinking about like the people that they're with, and they're not really looking for like the next best thing. And they're like finding it in themselves to be able to like open themselves up emotionally and intimately. And like I've had some like really intimate connections with friends and people I'm dating. So like more so than previously. And so I think that's kind of really cool. um I don't know what to make of it for what happens after the whole pandemic, after everything cools down and things start opening up. But it's definitely I think there's some intensity behind the situation we're in that causes people to want to invest deeper into the relationships that they have. But then again, I also think like there's probably going to be like a lot of breakups after this too, like for people who live together, or they're just spending all their time, I don't know. And what do you feel about that? Or I guess you got the data, so
Well, yeah, I mean, what we're talking about goes probably deeper than what any data can show, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I've had the same experience. I think with the pandemic, you definitely, just the fact that you're spending more time with someone and you have less options, you run out of surface things to say, right? You don't really, um, this is why, like, I think playing games and like, house party and stuff is so popular, is because it gives you something to do after talking about how your day was. Because usually when you're doing stuff in the real world, you have more stories and you have more exciting things to talk about. And so what we end up doing, I think, is going deep. We start talking about, like, you yourself asking things like, so what was the most embarrassing story you have growing up? And you start going, you find all these deeper and meaningful conversations because you don't have a lot of surface stuff left to say. And you start talking about family, and you start talking about dreams. Like yesterday I just had a conversation with my girlfriend about what I would love the next 5 years to look like if I had a magic wand. And like all these things come up, and you start playing games. We found ourselves playing games that were actually kind of vulnerability games about opening up and telling stories and being more empathetic, and talking about fears, and talking about if you could change this, if you can change one thing about me, or even fun stuff like that. And so we continuously are going deeper and deeper and deeper. And we have, that has definitely expedited the relationship. And like you said, it takes away FOMO, right? It takes away what others are doing or what other options you have. I think it probably is igniting a little bit of the primal brain, more kind of the Maslow's needs of like hierarchy.
It's like we're in this together. We're like surviving together, and so we stick
exactly
together.
Exactly. It's like survival. I really need you. You need me. Let's really work this out. And you're right. There is the other side of it where shadows come out, right? And truth comes out, and patients, people that have higher neuroticism, that or people that I guess are in more fight or flight mode, there's going to be a lot more fights. And fights aren't necessarily bad as long as people make up and talk about it and learn from it. But I can see a lot of people really going deep to what their needs are, and realizing that this is not the person that makes me happy. I really can't stand them much longer, but we're kind of stuck in this until the end of quarantine, and that's not a good place to be either. So I think that's where communication and adaptability and negotiation really comes in.
I would say that it's like right now, if you are meeting new people, it's a really great moment to be able to like qualify people, right? Like where we're meeting people, and we know like this is one thing that's like super important. How important to you is the mask? How important to you is the social distancing? How important to you is all this stuff? How important to you is reopening things for the economy and your job and things like that? And like you can, because of this, we can start to find the gradient of values that people are on, right? Like how far on one side or the other that they feel about specific issues regarding this whole pandemic. And like for me, it's been really great to like filter people out. Like in the beginning is like if somebody was like, oh, like I wouldn't want to meet you because I'm waiting till after the quarantine's over, and they're thinking like they're just thinking short-sightedly, like we can actually like we can talk in the beginning, or we can talk online if you're like online dating or something. We could talk, but and like this is the short-sighted thing. We're not really thinking about something continuing in the future, because realistically, you're not going to be pen pals, And so for me, it was like, oh, this person is not qualified for me because this person doesn't care about like making the connection truly and like meeting me in person. And then, like even if I could like, prove it to them that it's like it's totally safe, they'd still be a little wary and fearful and like listening to the media and stuff like that to really and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying like that's not what my values are, right? So like I think I want this, this specific type of thing, or this type of mindset where the person's not going to be scared, and they're going to take life as it comes and just deal with it, because that's what life is, in my opinion. And so I've been able to like filter certain people out in that position. And then also I had people who are currently in my life who are like friends, or people that I've been already been in touch with and like talking to all the time, right? And I'm like texting them or I'm calling them, and they're talking about they're still like fearful. And I just had a conversation with my friend. It's her birthday today. And I was talking to her. She's in New York City. And she said, basically that now she was like, in the beginning, I was really supportive of all this stuff, all the, the lockdown and everything. But she's like, but now I feel like it's been enough. Like the metrics, like, like once like certain truths have been revealed, once certain metrics and statistics have been revealed, it's like, oh, well, this doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. And like, I think it's important for things to start opening back up. And like, she went from a complete, like did like almost a complete 180. She's like, yeah, I think it would be good to have masks and stuff, but like, I don't think you should be like forcing people, like you should be arresting people for like going to the beach. And whereas like prior to this, like, a month and a half ago, it was like a completely opposite thing. And so it's really interesting to see. Like I've always thought that you can't keep people like locked down like this forever before they start rejecting it and just going out and living like a life, being human again, going outside, being with people. That's what makes us human. And people are really trying to get into that. And that's what I love about like the meeting the neighbors thing. Like you're getting back into the community oriented thing, something that we didn't have before. So it's something that, there is silver linings in all this. Though, I mean, obviously I have my own opinions about, like, I think, I wish we could just open shit back up and then go back to the wild, wild west and see what happens. But, I think it's kind of cool that like people are trying to find community again. And these are the positive experiences. I'm sure there's people out there who are really alone and depressed, and like they are, because they didn't have a really supportive network, or they didn't have the capabilities to really make new friends or maintain their relationships, that they're suffering a lot. And that's why depression is on the rise for sure.
Yeah, I think I think what you bring up about qualifying is really interesting, because we're kind of in this pressure cooker in some sense, where we are only going to let in what's important to us, and we are going to filter way better of what is unnecessary. As I think a lot of us are learning what's important. And like you said, community, and then you talk about community, and then you're like, who, right? And it kind of starts with our inner self, and then it starts with family or friends and a romantic partner, and maybe acquaintances, and then some business colleagues, and then overall community. And so there's all these different layers of people that you want to reach out to, and who, like, I've seen a lot of people have reached out to me. I mean, not just because I'm opening up on the newsletter, but old, like exes and people that I haven't spoken to for a long time are reaching out to me. And I think again, it does bring you back to this little kind of center of you of asking yourself what is important. And I think it's such a great time to ask ourselves what is important right now. A lot of people that answered this question, the form, were like, hey, some people got closer that I didn't expect, and some people got farther that I didn't expect from me, as far as who I realized is important and who I want in my life. So it does act in a filter in itself. So the scale was 1 through 10. And maybe I'll share this with you, and you can throw this in the editing of this, or a picture of it. But I look at 8, 9, 10 as the people. So if you scored at 8, 9, 10, 10 meaning that you really enjoyed the differences in people, and reaching out to people that you haven't spoken in a while, and that was something that was a positive, right? And then 7's always a tricky one, right? I almost wanted, I forgot where I heard this, but if you ever do a scale 1 to 10, you should leave 7 out, or you tell people you're not allowed to pick 7, because it's just kind of an easy way out. For some reason in our minds, we pick 7. So there's a big jump between 6 and 8, right? So I almost look at 1 through 7 as meh, I didn't really enjoy it, but and maybe I'll look at a 1 or 2 or 3 as like I really disliked it. So people that out of the 60 or so responses, 12 people loved it, right? They hit a 10, and that's a real, I mean, 9 and 10, 10 people picked
Regarding
9.
what question again? I'm sorry, I'm looking
So
at the thing right now.
yeah, so that was the during the pandemic, I enjoyed reaching out and speaking to people I have not spoken to in a while.
Okay.
Right, just going back to the question that we were talking about, and we'll put this up on the slide, I guess.
I could just put it right here.
But right, so yeah, so 20.7%, basically 21% were 10s, 10% or 17% were 9s, 15.5% were 8. That's a big chunk right there, right? So that's and then 22% were 7s.
So a lot of people are getting back to, they're enjoying getting back to the people that they haven't had time to, or whatever, have ghosted or whatever, haven't been in contact with previously for a while.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of people, the majority of people enjoyed it, and it makes sense. And so I just wanted to find that information out because it's hard to tell if people like or admit, or how they would admit, because this was anonymous, right? And so it's hard to tell if because sometimes people, if you're not in the best place, right, it's like hard to talk to someone you haven't talked to in a while, because you have a little more anxiety, or things aren't going as well, you don't have as much good news or whatever.
Totally. And if people are depressed, a lot of the time they'll be socially isolating, and so they're waiting for somebody to reach out to them, right? So
right, this is kind of along the question that we ask in the workshop, is at least, yeah, I know I asked this, is who would like to be approached correctly more, right? And almost everybody raises their hand. Who would like to be approached correctly more, and then how many times are you approached correctly more, right? And so people look around, and it's like, if I did approach, or I did reach out, there's a very high chance that they would like it. They would want to have that conversation, or check to see if this can reignite a friendship or whatever. Again, yeah, it's going back to us wanting community, right? But who knows what we're going to go back to when everything opens up, or how it opens up,
right,
it's hard to tell.
Let's look at the other questions. What has been the most fun social activity you've done during this quarantine? Yeah, what have people been saying? I know that's been you kind of have to just use your eyes and look at what people have been saying.
Yes, I will use my eyes,
since it's free, since it's an open response, or an open-ended question.
Yeah. So this was all over the board, right? So we have people saying Zoom calls, spending time with my newish boyfriend, playing music, writing songs and sharing the recordings with others, erotic open mic
open mic night.
Yeah, they said they didn't participate though, but they enjoyed it.
I bet they did. The cameras off or on.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't like erotic open mic? I do that every night, with or without anybody.
Yeah, just looking in the mirror, just
right. That's all you need. Cooking together, which tonight I actually have a cocktail. My girlfriend and I are doing an online cocktail class, making cocktails. And I've been learning how to cook, and I can relate to that one. Playing cards with family. I'm assuming that's in-person real cards, which is great. Texting with friends, walks and having meal times in our patio, which sounds amazing. It's amazing how so one of my favorite things I've been doing is spending time. My girlfriend has this really nice balcony, and it's fixed up really nice with benches and cushions, and there's a a barbecue grill, and it's just I mean, all these stories are gonna be with the girlfriend, because that's all who
Yeah.
I've been really hanging out with, and it's been great. But that balcony has been such a staple. We've had some amazing conversations almost every morning that I'm over there. We'll have coffee or tea and just sit out there and talk. And this is where we have a lot of our deep conversations. We almost made a joke that we should create a podcast called Balcony Talk or something like that, and just record our conversations on there. But my point is that these little things like walks and having meal times in our patio is like, that stuff is so special. It probably would not have been written on this, had there been no pandemic, right? And so you really see what you take for granted. I love that stuff, just sitting out. Like we have these like cool Edison light bulbs, people can have candles.
I think an open air communal space is like something that's really important for like social, like building community, because it gives you a space to be relaxed and like be with other people, even if it's like the balcony and you're not really around other people other than the people who are in that house or apartment.
Yeah.
But like the idea of the patio, I think we might have talked about this before, like when you went to the South, like in the South and in like the East Coast and stuff and other places, like patios are like a thing for the community, right? Like everybody hangs out like in the evenings when it's really hot out and it's really humid. Like everybody would hang, especially before AC, right? Before air conditioning, everybody's hanging out on the patio trying to cool off, and they're having
their iced tea
or something, and you see your neighbors and people talk to each other and they hang out on their patios, and that's like a communal thing. And
I love that shit.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Have your guitar and play some music. I love it. That's one of the biggest reasons I moved to LA, was because you can do that in the weather. The weather that's why like Austin, Texas is a great place for that. There's a lot of bars and cafes that have outdoor areas, Tel Aviv, like some of these cities, it's, it doesn't get too hot or it doesn't get too cold. Well, Austin will get too hot, but at some point,
and cold.
Yeah. And so I love that. I think creating that is maybe a nice little life hack. Is, my parents, they have this really cool backyard, which, there's places to sit and eat. And it's just, I love, the sun, or you have an umbrella if there's too much sun. And so I think that's underrated. In fact, before this pandemic, I started creating a relationship with a cafe over here, and it was called Avo Cafe near where I live. And I don't know how they're going to stay alive, but they have this backyard patio that I was thinking about just having weekly kind of jaunty events or get-togethers, and it was something I really wanted to do before this started, was create like just as long as you're outdoors and doing stuff. So I think setting that up somehow, I think can increase happiness. Setting up a little bit of patio or balcony or outside beer garden or whatever it is, situation in good weather in your life will make you happy.
Oh, totally. I think.
Okay, let's keep going.
Just having that space.
Volunteering and participating in a 20-day kindness challenge. That's cool. Nothing. Just been on Facebook Messenger, someone says. Okay. Walks. Door dashing. Now, I love this answer. This is actually a pretty fun answer here, and it's very creative.
So
remember as a kid, you would just doorbell ditch?
Oh, ding dong dash. Ding dong
right.
ditch.
I don't know.
No, door dashing.
Door dashing is delivering. Oh, man. Okay, so we just came up. Okay, door dashing is delivering. I think ding dong dash would be a great would be a great activity right now. I don't know, because you have to be 6 feet apart. You can't get in trouble for it, really. It's like you want to say hi, but you can't. I might do that.
We used to do that as kids in my neighborhood.
Yeah. Now people have like the Nest though, and they'll just
right. They'll just like look at the video camera.
Okay, so fun social activity for this person was door dashing. Okay, I guess that's cool because you can be somewhat social. I was thinking doorbell ditching. Okay, Zoom meetings. Someone said they haven't done any fun social activities. Zoom calls. I guess that's all we've got. So a lot of people are going to write that. I see that. I'll skip all the Zoom calls, Zoom chats, online music sing-alongs, virtual
More
speed
Zoom.
dating. Someone
Oh,
did
yeah.
trivia, so game night with family and friends, FaceTime, painting, teaching Pilates with friends, going on solo car rides. It's actually pretty cool, getting seeing different
What fun
areas.
social things have you done? Solo car rides.
I guess the solo part. Well, if you go, at least if you go somewhere like where there's people, maybe go. The parks are open and the beaches are open. Zoom dance party. Went hiking with a friend at one of the few places still allowing hikes. Small outdoor gatherings. Takeout food and drink illegally consumed in a park. Nice. So yeah, I think I've done that a couple times.
There you go.
Is going to the park, lip syncing on camera. That's pretty fun. That stuff is fun. Or you mute yourself on Zoom with someone else, and you try to guess what each other are saying. It's
Oh,
kind of
you do like a bad lip reading?
you do
Yeah.
bad lip reading. Yeah,
Fun.
it's hilarious. Okay, a lot of games. Someone wrote suicidal ideation.
That's not good.
That's not good. Maybe it was
I
in
mean,
the
that could be a
newsletter app.
joke, but yeah.
Hope yeah, it's a tough time. Yeah, walking, hiking, art. There's a lot of the same things, spending time with family, Zoom calls. So cycling. Wow, a lot of trivia and games is the majority of it. Someone said banging a complete stranger I met at the hot springs. So
Okay.
that's cool. That's cool that fun stuff is going on.
Yeah. People are having some fun.
So people are getting creative, and a lot of it seems like games and playing and
Zooms related stuff. Yeah.
So those have been some of the most fun social activities. What has been your most fun social activity?
Hanging out with like a girl I'm dating, making food or something. I spent some time at my friend's house in Los Gatos, and she lives out in the woods, and took her dog for a walk out there, and we went hot tubbing with her neighbors, and just kind of like spending that time and getting really having like deep conversations late at night and stuff like that. And it's been, that's fun. We took, she's like a badass business person, and we talk about business stuff and trying to like figure out strategies for stuff, and then also we have very similar interests and very similar proclivities, and so we understand each other, and so if I'm stressed out, it's probably something that she stresses out about, and if she's stressed out, like something that I can understand, so we're like very supportive of each other there. So that's been something that's been really fun.
Great.
Let's look at these other questions though.
Okay.
Current current situation makes me more want to settle down and start a family or partnership. Interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering what people were thinking. And this is more geared towards single. That's why we had the opportunity of I'm already in a family or partnership, right? And so 24%, 24.1% agreed with this. Okay. And then 12.1% strongly agreed. So there was about, let's see, so that comes to, I think, like 21. Yeah, 21 out of, it looks like 58 responses somewhat agreed in some sense between those two. And so 31% stayed neutral, which is interesting. So about a third stayed where they were. And then let's see, 7 plus 3, 10 people disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then 15.5% were already in relationships. So, yeah, I mean, the majority by a little bit made people more want to settle down if they weren't, and get into a partnership or start a family, right? Like, I don't know, 36, 37%. So that's interesting. 31% stayed neutral. Yeah, not a lot of people. 17% disagreed. So I guess, but the question here was if people enjoyed being single and they're feeling lucky that they are, right, during this time. So it makes sense that less people would feel that way. I mean, a lot of people are having fun during this time too, and I think there's going to be a social explosion at some point, a backlash of going a little bit on the other side of the pendulum, like very social. I mean, depending on how long this lasts and what we find is a second wave and third wave, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there who are just like, okay, cool. Have you been sick? No. Have you been tested? Right. Instead of tested for STDs, it's like, have you been tested for COVID? And
Dude,
so,
I just got my I just did my antibody test today, and I'll get my results back on Monday. So
right.
yeah, it's
Those things are pretty reliable.
Yeah, it tests for the antibodies, the
Right.
IgG, the CoV IgG or whatever, And so if you have it, it means that you've had COVID and you have the natural immunity to it now based on your immune system. And if you don't have it, then you could still get infected. And you could still,
But can you get it again?
I mean, everybody can get any virus
We don't know.
more than once. It's just a matter of how your immune system is.
Right. We don't know.
I mean, unless it's like some sort of retrovirus that changes over, that changes a lot, like HIV, right? Then yes. But from the stuff that I've found out from like my research is it's a lot like any other virus. Like it's a lot like the other coronaviruses, like the swine flu and the bird flu and stuff like that, where it's just its own strain, and maybe there's one or two other strains, but there's also cross immunity, where what they found with like swine flu was people who got sick with a regular cold in the previous year had natural immunity already to the swine flu, or like they wouldn't get as sick because the antibodies are very similar, and they affect that virus in the same, in a very similar way. So that's kind of cool. So if there's something that's like similar to this, right? Like if you got the flu earlier in the year, maybe your antibodies, are fighting it off, and like you got it and you're fine, and you don't have viral loads, and you don't really have the ability to spread it. So yeah, so there's some interesting stuff. But yeah.
I mean,
people got to take care of their immune systems though. Vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin D, get some sunlight, exercise.
All those good things.
Go outside.
There was a video going around about viral load versus viral dose. Mm-hmm. Actually, my good friend Jason McGarva interviewed a guy from MIT about the viral dose, and it was a cool video because it ended up saying if you are seeing someone, you should make out every day,
so that you get their immunity, or like
you
get like a reduced strain or a reduced amount.
So you get you don't get a big shock of. So I guess what would happen if, like, let's say you had this is kind of why doctors are getting high doses, right? And so if you had a romantic partner, and then you guys, like, one traveled to back home, and they ended up getting the virus, and you didn't have it, and you haven't seen them for like a week or 2 weeks or something, and they got it, and then they came back and you guys made out immediately, you're getting a very high dose, and that's dangerous, right? And so a lot of people aren't talking about this, but had you like kissed every day as the virus was your load was slowly getting bigger, you wouldn't get this huge load at once to where it could potentially really hit your immune system hard. You give your immune system a chance with less of a load in you. So that's a really interesting way of looking at it. So make out and have sex with your partners every day in case they catch it somewhere, because then I don't know if that's good advice though. But I mean, from an evolutionary point of view, that's very good advice.
Usually you want the opposite. You just want big loads all at once.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Shoot those big loads. Okay.
We're men here. We when we go to the grocery store, we carry all the bags from the car to the house once. It's one big load,
Right. That's a metaphor, you mean?
Euphemisms. Okay. All right.
Okay. So what social events do you miss the most during quarantine? Was the next question. Improv classes, going out to dinner, jamming with other musicians, going downtown to explore, group hikes, wineries, museums, touristy stuff, going out to game. I like it. Going out to bars, amateur sports leagues, dancing. So I'll try not to repeat these. Movies, travel, a lot of dinners with friends, travel, festivals, dating, leaving the house, traveling with friends, seeing live music, congregating in social places like wine bars, family, concerts, yoga, beach, in-person hot yoga, swing
orgies,
dancing,
swinging.
Yeah, catching up with non-work friends. That makes sense. Traveling. Let's see. Taking the kids to the park, parties. It's interesting how it's just restaurants, and I say this too. And we're walking down Main Street here, or in Venice when we're doing walks, and it's like, oh, I wish I could just take you out to a restaurant. I wish we can go have dinner. I wish we can just be in this, watch a little bit of live music in the background, some jazz bar or whatever. Yeah, a lot of people are. I mean, it's amazing how it does distill down to very few things, and I think that's something that's really interesting, is what it distills down to. It's being in a place comfortably with people you care about, with other things going on, right? With other entertainment or other people doing the same thing, even if you don't relate to them, right? Even if you don't know them you don't know that group having the birthday party in the corner.
You just want the vibe. You want the energy there.
Yeah, it's that vibe. It's the vibe of other people. It's the vibe of things happening, and that's an interesting aspect that isolation, I think, brings out, is you don't have the vibe. You don't have that vibe.
It's the
right?
tribe, right? It's it's the celebration after harvest. It's the celebration before going to war. It's the wedding. It's the it's the big, just the weekly gathering of some sort of ritual, right? Like going to church or something like that. Like that's just being a part of a community and being part of a tribe. And like when you're out at these places, I feel like, we like that because we want to be a part of something. We want to be a part of something greater than ourselves, and that's what the community is.
Yeah, I think that's just it was so taken for granted, right? It was so taken for granted when we had it.
Totally. What's the first thing that you would do if you if everything just magically went back to normal tomorrow and nobody had coronavirus and everything opened back up?
I would travel. I think first of all, I would travel to see family, right? Because I miss them. I'd probably go up to San Francisco, eat at my favorite restaurants, and hang out with friends, have my girlfriend there, and see family. That's probably what I would do. And then second to family would just be travel to like Mexico, go somewhere like lively, like, I don't know, Mexico City or Puerto Vallarta, and just be around, different be around people who just know how to like go out and have traditional cultural gatherings. And I think it's pretty simple, right? It's like having the things that you can't have right now, you know. We want what we can't have, and that's just being at a restaurant with amazing food, with things going on. And so traveling's been, traveling something I always need. And so I would travel, do stuff I love, I think, with people I love. Pretty simple. A concert would be nice too.
Definitely. Like, it doesn't even have to be like a big concert, right? Like, just like some sort of open air concert, live band on a Sunday afternoon while you're eating some good grub,
Yeah,
drinking, having a nice drink with the people around you in your neighborhood or something. That would be like so fun, you know?
I know.
Like so relaxing and just like, this is life, you know?
Yeah, you're making me miss it. Yeah, I'm just thinking of my favorite restaurant. Like there's this restaurant in North Beach area in San Francisco called Katana, and just has this like kind of fire clay oven in the background going, and it's dark, and the seating's really great, and the food's amazing, and you can sit by the window and watch people at North Beach a little bit, and it's just oh my god, it's if I knew this was going to happen, I would have eaten there. Like I would have gone up there like probably 3 or 4 times before this to enjoy that with family or something. It's scary. It's scary to think that some of these restaurants might not be there.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of places are going to be closing down because they can't afford to keep things, just on hold for right now. Yeah. And that's terrible. So it, even after things open back up, it's not going to be the same, right? For at least a while until people come in and build things back up.
Right. All right. This next question's also an interesting one. The current situation made me realize that I need to reevaluate my romantic life. So the biggest chunk here was 34% went to I'm not in a romantic relationship, but quarantine has nudged me more towards wanting to be in one.
How much? How many people?
34%.
Damn. Yeah.
So a third.
Thinking about like, life is fleeting, so might as well make a family.
Right. It pushes you towards that. It makes sense. That's why I asked that, as I was wondering, like, that's kind of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs there, as well as reproduction. Just primal needs of evolution, right? And it kind of, you would think that would push things toward the forefront. You maybe want to take a step toward that, or realize you never know what's going to happen. I wish I had done it, or whatever. Who knows, and who knows what they're saying is right. Maybe you're thinking about it because you feel lonely, but then imagine when everything opens up and you have options again, you might go back to your old behavior of just having fun, right? And which is fine, but rather than working toward something more important, whether it's real friends or a family or a relationship, right? So 27% was the next biggest one that says, I am not in a romantic relationship and quarantine has not changed my thoughts on it, right? So there you go. It's kind
of a lot of people are single though. That's what
right.
It sounds like. That's like
sounds like a lot of
almost 50%.
So 50%, well, 50%
or a little over.
Yeah. Well, I think there's more, right? And so right, so it hedges against that a little bit. It has not changed my thoughts on it, but who knows what their thoughts on it were. Okay, maybe they were already there. Okay, the next window is 16%. I am in a romantic relationship and quarantine has brought us even closer. I love that.
It's great.
So that means, I mean, it makes sense. You're spending more time. You're, I think,
And
you're
that's
having more conversations with people. You are, you're having forced date nights, which is great. So, and great in a lot of ways. So I think, I
you
love
can't
that one.
ignore each other, and like it's going back to what we were talking about earlier is, like how people are just being more intimate. They're less distracted by all these other things that are going on in their life, and they can really focus on the relationships, and that's what makes it better.
Right. And that's hedged with 14.3% that say I am in a romantic relationship and quarantine has made me rethink it. So,
Redefining your values.
right. So, redefining how you guys get along. Yeah, we have a couple friends that are in this boat, and um, you know, it's hard. It's about adaptability and negotiation.
What are the main like concerns that you've been hearing?
Well, it's so I think it stems down to insecurities. Uh, The case I'm thinking about, it stems down to insecurities, right? And so um, I think a lot of fights happen with insecurities when people are insecure about something. I mean, who knows? God knows why people are fighting, but um, sometimes you create fights from small things because of the underlining problem that you might have in the relationship, right? It could be finance stress, it could be sexual stress, right? Um, it could be communication is bad, it could be uh, trust is messed up, right? So I think I think insecurities are coming out, and people are hearing more about other people's insecurities, and it just kind of amplifies those things. It amplifies, right? And plus the situation changed things, right? It changed things financially for a couple, or they have a ton of different responsibilities with kids, and one
Totally.
person isn't picking up the slack a little bit. They're not adapting to the situation of having to be home all the time and also work with the kids, and you know help with this. That stuff is really stressful, and if you don't have good communication around that, if you don't negotiate it out and come out with an answer, uh, that you need to have that, right? But here's the thing: is you need to have that, and you need to work. You need to fix it. You need to come up with a solution, or it's going to come up over and over and over and over and over again.
I've been thinking a lot about marriage lately, and thinking about like what's required in maintaining a relationship. I was actually speaking to my mom about this a few weeks back on Mother's Day, um, about and on Mother's Day, and on her birthday as well, which was in March. Basically, my parents are divorced, and they've been divorced since I was 2. And I was talking about like how I don't want that, right? Like I want to get married and have a relationship that goes until death, right? So I have my grandparents, my mom's parents, were married 63 years before my grandma died. My grandparents on my dad's side were married 40 something years until my grandfather died, or maybe 50 years or something like that, until my grandfather died. And so I was like looking at, like, kind of analyzing the differences between that, and looking at different resources on relationships, and how, like, I think part of that is like, it isn't you can't just like fully depend upon the emotion and how that person makes you feel in a relationship. And you have to like have um your commitments and your responsibilities to that relationship. And I think, as you said, like people are freaking out about seeing the insecurities in others and they don't want to put in the work. And I think there are certain things that cannot be compromised in a relationship. Like, for instance, if like one of the things is important in a long-term relationship is making sure that, you know, you will accept that person unconditionally, right? And that's all I want in a relationship, is to be accepted unconditionally and supported in that way, and then I can do what the other person needs. And if for some reason that feels like that's being faltered, like, the whole thing is going to fall apart. Sometimes also compromising your terms of the relationship, right? There's certain things that you need to compromise, and then there's certain things that cannot be compromised. And I think the thing that can't be compromised is making decisions related to the entity of the relationship itself. So I was just talking to my dad about this weekend because his girlfriend broke up with him like a week ago. And so he was super stressed out, and I was, you know, visiting home, and he's been lonely because of the COVID-19 thing. And his girlfriend broke up with him after 10 years. They were engaged. She moved in with him like 3 months ago, and this is rough. And I was thinking about it like, well, you can't, I'm not judging. I don't know what was the whole thing of it, right, with both of you guys. But I think when you make a decision, it has to be, in your relationship, it has to be about what's going to be best for our relationship, not what's going to be best for me. Because when you go from being single, when you're single, you're doing all the time, you're doing things that are best for you. And then sometimes you get into a relationship and you try to do things that are best for the other person. And that becomes codependence, that builds up resentment, and that doesn't help the relationship. If you do what's best for the relationship, you might be a little angry about the things, the decisions that you make or the actions that you have to take, but ultimately it's probably going to be better for the relationship in the end. And then everything gets increased by 10 times once you have kids, because you're never doing anything for yourself. You're doing it all for your kids. And I think like learning to take this perspective of like, what's it most important for me. And I think that's a shift that I've had in the past year or so, that I was thinking, like, I've always wanted to have a family and kids, but I never really felt like, I didn't know when I was ready. And like lately I've been feeling definitely ready to start a family, get married, have kids. And I think part of it is just like making the decision and then the commitment. I'm going to do it and work on it. Like, there's always going to be somebody who could be potentially better, right? There's always going to be something. Grass is always greener on the other side. What are you going to do with your grass? Are you gonna take care of it, or are you gonna neglect it? You might as well try to turn it into the best grass that you possibly can, the best lawn, and like the best relationship.
No, that's a great metaphor.
By work.
Totally.
My grandparents, who were married 63 years before my grandma died, they told me a lot about relationships, and because I always asked them, my grandpa was in the Navy, and when he first got shipped off, before they got married, my grandma sent him a Dear John letter saying, Dear John, it's not going to work out. And he went back, and he came back and went straight to my grandma and said, I'm not taking no for an answer. And they worked things out. And I actually learned, they told my mother, a couple of years ago, they were insinuated that there might have been infidelity in their relationship. And they said, basically said some rules about it. They were like, if there's ever infidelity, don't let the kids know, because that's the most important thing, right? The family is the most important thing. And it has nothing to do with, being right, or being, feeling some sort of moral high ground. It's what's going to be best for your family, what's going to be best for your relationship. And they loved each other to the very end, and that's fucking awesome. That's what I want. And so thinking about that, if you're in this relationship right now during this quarantine time, and you're starting to think, oh, I'm rethinking, what's going on here. It depends, like, what kind of commitment have you made, and like, how are you, what are you feeling? Do you feel like you want this relationship to work out, right? And if you want the relationship to work, because for one, maybe if you have kids, right? If you have kids, that's super important. But if you don't have that commitment, you got to think about, all right, like, am I doing this because I'm being selfish, or am I doing this because ultimately I don't feel like we're compatible? So it takes some introspection there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. I think definitely taking work into a relationship is one of the most important things. And the part that really struck me, I think, about what you're saying, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot of, is the willingness to the willingness that your partner, the level of willingness that your partner wants to work it out, right, in like a civilized manner, in some sense, right? And so what I mean by that is, this is kind of a this is kind of an underrated. Everyone, when we talk about relationships, everyone always likes to focus on the attraction. Everyone likes to, trust is really important. Um, and communication, which ties into what I think I'm trying to say here, is if you can see that your partner is willing to adapt and negotiate, even if it doesn't matter what you're fighting about. Let's pretend, right? You're just having an argument, you're fighting, but the fact that they're like, cool, how do we fix this? Can we do this? Can we try that? Rather than what you're saying, than being right. I think that's a test in itself, is how willing is the other person to be open-minded, to listen and work on this issue, right? I bet if a couple fights a lot, you can probably sacrifice a few fights to look at it from a meta point like this, to where you only pay attention how well the other person is fighting, right? Forget about that you left the toilet seat up. Okay. How well are they fighting? How well are they communicating their other perspective with you? It's an interesting way of looking at it. And if you see somebody who communicates it well, with respect, who's still being a badass and being assertive, but and going against what you're saying, or against, putting not, who telling you you're doing something maybe that's making them feel in a negative way. But if they're doing it well, and that's adaptability, right? That's negotiation. If you can have good negotiation with the other person, of course, trust, communication, sex, everything else, attraction, right? And I think that's a part of attraction, right? That's emotional and social intelligence, is being a good negotiator.
Totally. And that requires empathy, right? Like that requires emotional
empathy,
intelligence,
vulnerability, the ability to, and this is what I love about my girlfriend too, is she makes me look at myself. She'll bring up the things that I might be doing in not the best way, right? And I'll be like, oh yeah, well, it's hard to look at sometimes, where, sometimes I find a spin to a story to emphasize my point, and I might over exaggerate that or something, right? And I know that I'm doing it, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, you're right, I'm doing that thing. And I love that, and that makes me a better person. And so, not a lot of people being okay with looking at yourself when your partner says something that might show a flaw in you, is something that's a very emotionally intelligent thing to have in your tool belt, I think.
So how does she do it? How does she say, you're silly?
Or that's exactly what she says. She looks at me, she winks, and she says, you're silly. And then I just get it. No, she'll tell me. She'll be like, hey, I feel like you're spinning the words a little different here, or I don't believe that's what happened. And I think sometimes you embellish the story, or you you exaggerate a story to make a point sometimes, and it makes me feel, whatever. She'll go into that. She'll just tell me straight up, and that's great. That's something I've been working on and looking at. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I do it for humor, and I use exaggeration and embellishment, and
And you're like,
it's obvious,
honey, you just
right?
ruined my joke.
Right. But if we're having an argument, and sometimes, or I feel I maybe stretch or I reach for why I might have said something. I'm trying. Sometimes when I'm trying to make a point, I pull all these different angles to try to come up with different things to figure myself out. And sometimes it sounds like I'm throwing the book at someone or something. And so it's all about communication. It's all about letting people know, that calling people out in a nice way. And I don't want to say the word nice, but calling someone out in a respectful way can be very useful. Yes, commitment, honesty, and I think telling the truth is something we all work on all the time, everybody, in every situation. And the truth is interesting. It's nice to have truth. I was just listening to this talk. Who was it? It was about truth. I think it was probably Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure. Maybe, but
Something about the truth.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go.
Truth will be used to slay the dragon.
That's right. I fucking love that guy. I love him. But something that was said, I think it was him who was saying this, was number one, the truth. The more you tell the truth, the more interesting your life will be, right? Usually when you don't tell the truth, it's to maintain, it's not rocking the boat, right? It's not, you're just trying to keep the boat on the dock and safe, right? But if you tell the truth, you might get somewhere, and it's intriguing, and it can take you to very interesting places. But also,
totally, yeah. Like if you, I tried a week of extreme honesty once. It got a girlfriend to break up with me.
Nice.
But that was something interesting. Something I learned a lot from that, right? Like, and I also learned a lot about my values at that moment, right? Like, obviously, like I think I would have done things more tactfully now, as an old, me 8-9 years down the road or whatever. I think I would have done things differently in that situation with my ex-girlfriend. But like, telling the truth, you feel like so much more free. You told the truth. You said, you say how you're feeling, and if you don't agree, it with somebody, it like creates discussion, and like that's when people can get really intimate. When you are being assertive and just kind of like, like nonviolent communication of openly inviting discussions with people and saying, well, you know what, I don't think it's really like this, and here's my opinion why, and here are the reasons. You have such a deeper level of complexity to your conversations, and a deeper level of like trust with the people that you're talking to, because that person trusts you to tell the truth, and now they feel like they can open up and talk to you in a certain way. So you speed up, you like put on turbo mode for your relationships, like especially if they're newer relationships, you get deeper with people.
Totally.
And yeah, as more shit ends up happening because of that.
Yeah, the truth is exciting.
Tell your girlfriend you want to anal, and like it starts to plant that seed in her butt. It just starts planting the seed, and eventually it might be
your birthday
comes
seed,
around.
yeah, but I don't know if it's fertile ground.
I mean, that's you're just being truthful, right? Like you're just
right. It's true. And yeah, the thing that was really cool about truth was, that didn't throw us off at all.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. Is truth. Well, this is a kind of a visual thing that I was getting at with truth, is that when you have truth, you have reality backing you up, right? I mean, think about that. when you have truth, you have what really happened in reality is in your corner, right? But when you don't tell the truth, you're fighting reality. I mean, there's so much of reality. So there's a million angles that it'll just smother you in, right? So like the lie will come up in this way or that way, or 5 years down the road, or 10 years, or in your subconscious, right? So with truth, you have all this massive weight with it that's on your side,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
it's like, so it's nice. It's nice to have that behind you. It's like that reality is in my corner, right?
And that's where
Kind of a cool way of
that's
looking
where
at it.
like there's not like a long term, like when it comes to like things like spinning a narrative for political gain or some sort of influence over people, right? I think that's very short-sighted, right? When you are spinning something or you're not using the truth fully. There are ways to tell the truth and make things interesting, but if you're changing the facts to fit some sort of manipulation that you want, whether it be as simple as like, I just don't want to make waves with people, right? Like, I don't want somebody to get mad at me for having a different opinion, so I'm gonna like omit information, right? Like I think I think that's very short-sighted, because thinking about it, like with that example, right? Like, I want this person to like me, so I'm not really going to tell my full opinion. Well, you want that person to like you, so you're trying to develop a relationship, which means that could go well into the future. If that person doesn't like you, like for who you are, you're going to have so much pressure on you to be somebody that you're not, and then eventually it could all come crashing down when they find out who you truly are, and they're going to feel betrayed and lied to, and like it's coming out of nowhere. And
Right.
and so the truth, like, even we see this all the time with like the current events, right? We see this with like the media trying to spin the truth or trying to like omit facts and stuff, just to get a reaction. And this has been happening for several years, and now people are hating the media. Now people are hating, like there's still people hang on to it, but like people, we're having people who are turning very radically in different directions, politically or just like personally, around the information that they receive. And that's why I think that's why we like have people who are like flat earthers, right? Like, because they're like, well, I've been betrayed so many times that like I'm just going to say that I believe the world is flat, or
Right.
I'm going to believe somebody else who puts things into a different way. And maybe the flat earthers who actually believe what they're saying, it's not that they're not being truthful, it's that they believe, they have conviction, right? So I'm going to listen to these people. These people at least are upright, upstanding, in a way. They have some sort of ethics around, the way that they give their information, whether that information is right or not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it all comes back around. And in the case of the media, we're slowly putting the media in our hands, right? Which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
as these new social platforms come out, we're becoming the news.
Cable cutting, Twitter.
Right.
Even just, I only listen to my friends, like word of mouth, right?
Yeah, or you research your own, and you experience your own, and you put it out there. I mean, there's only a few big news media outlets left that are considered real news outlets, and so and those are probably hanging on by a thread, trying to do they're turning into talk shows. Half of the news channels are just turning into talk shows.
It's no longer news, it's just media. It's not news media, it's just media,
right?
It's like we're going to talk about current events and give 90% opinion,
right?
And put a spin on it, create the narrative. Like, I don't even follow the stuff anymore, because like, well, one, it just like, most of it is just meant to make you mad or upset, or in some way it's going to cause, there's never any news that's like, except for local news, like local news stations, right, that are just service a small community. That's cool. They'll be like, oh, here's a farmer with a pig that he named Daisy, and it has, and it wears hats, right? Like they'll do like some cute little
I love
story.
Daisy.
Those
I
are
remember
nice,
Daisy.
right? Yeah, right. Like like local news will do that, and you'll see like the feel good stories. But like you go on to any of the big stuff like CNN or whatever, you're just hearing stuff that's like terrible, right? They love disasters. They love talking about disasters and plane crashes and hurricanes and stuff. They love creating tension with like this guy. I haven't really followed this, but the Ahmaud Arbery guy who got shot by two guys in like Georgia or something, or I don't know, some I think it was a southern state. He was like on this construction site. He was a black guy, and these two other guys tried to like citizens arrest him with guns, and then he like fought them off or something, and they shot him and killed him. And there's like all this information coming from different sides, and like the whole story is flipping back and forth, and it's just creating more relevance as like more information comes in. More information makes more people mad, right? Like I've had friends who, like, the day that it came out, they were like, justice for Ahmaud, and then I had like 2 days later, I see friends on Facebook saying, hey, wait, hold on, he was actually like running from a burglary or something, like he burgled somebody or something like that.
Whoa.
And and then it goes back and forth, and it just, people are doing this to get their own like clout, their own like following, and their own political gain and stuff like that. And like I don't know the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know the truth, and I'm not going to know the truth. And like it sucks that somebody died, for sure, right? Like it sucks that this guy died, and like but I don't know the whole details. I don't know the whole details. I'm not going to judge it. And I think the problem is too, like, a lot of the narrative is about like, if you don't make a snap judgment on this, you're a problem too, right? If you don't make the judgment based on the feelings, like, oh hey, if you're not saying that he needs, like, this guy needs justice, you're like, it's like, because I have white privilege, and because he's a black guy or something. And like I understand that, like, that's fucked up, but I just don't like that type of stuff. Or even there's another story that people were going back and forth with. Oh yeah, you remember like the Jussie Smollett guy?
Mm-hmm.
He was that actor who like got beat up by like some Trump supporters, but it turned out the Trump supporters were people who were like
Hired
by him. And like, so it's just going back and forth. It's like, what the fuck is the truth? Like,
Right.
ultimately this guy had like a good intention to like to send a message to people, but like he did something in a shady way. He did it in a very shady way. Like, he didn't tell a story, he like created a story. He like contrived.
Right. It was all a lie.
Yeah. And like,
Right. It came out. It eventually comes out. And
yeah, and I don't know how it affected him and his career or anything, but it definitely split people, right? It created a dichotomy of people who will align with the people who still think he was in the right for whatever, or even though they know he lied, they're going to be like, well, this is an important thing to talk about. And then the people who are like, but he lied. And so it's creating this
Right.
false dichotomy of like, you're on two different sides, but it's like, look, like, the truth is he did a bad thing, and he was pointing fingers and like trying to tell a story about something that's wrong in America at the same time, right? Like, so like he had a good intention, but he did the wrong thing. Like, he did something bad, and it was kind of stupid.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean,
who
knows what really the intention is?
Yeah, and we don't know the intention, but like that's what it seemed like, right? Like he wanted to basically send a message about like how this is something that happens to people based on their race or their beliefs or whatever. And I just think it's like, it's that's the truth thing.
Wasn't
It's
he
like,
upset about his contract or something?
I don't even know. See, like I don't
what I
know.
heard.
And you know what? It doesn't really affect me in my personal life. So
It's amazing how we can read stories from all these different angles, and there's so many different opinions, and it's hard to it's hard to distill what the real truth is. It's hard to get the lesson from it sometimes, or maybe sometimes the lesson is when you make your own, and you don't even know that if you know what's right, and so it's maybe it's learning to be open and look at all sides, and then really, who knows. It's
or maybe we
it's a mess.
shouldn't
It's a mess.
even deal with people outside of our local communities
That's
unless
a
they're
really
doing
big
something,
thought.
something
See,
absolutely abhorrent.
yes, it's something that I argued a lot of, and everyone gets mad at me for that. Is people ask me about what I think about politics, and I'm like, I'm not really that interested, in like I have one vote, and and I'll learn as much as I can, and maybe use my vote, but people spend massive amounts of time reading and learning and watching the news and discussing politics on the high level from these people they've never met in Washington, D.C.
They get so stressed out about it too.
And they get so it's like it rocks people to their closest belief system, and they think these people represent their belief system, where I think focusing on fixing yourself first, focusing on the small group of people that are around you.
Clean your room.
Focusing. That's right. This is a Jordan Peterson thing. Focusing on yourself. It's not just it's not like he made that up, right? It's about really focusing. This goes way back. Focusing yourself, and then helping one. When you're ready, you help one person that's close to you. You help another person. I had a blog about this on jaunty.org about and then you start working on maybe your community, and then you can help others and teach them, which is what me and you are trying to do now. But we all it's so easy, like we're yelling at people on TV. We're yelling at the TV for someone who is in DC, who we think controls our happiness. If you're in the United States, or if you're in a Western culture, you have, it's a little bit different in quarantine, but you have enough freedom. You have enough freedom, or so we think or feel, to do the things you want. You can start a business. You can meet people. We have the technology to meet anybody that wants to meet us back. Right. We used to be able to talk to anyone and create friends group. And this is why Jaunty is so important, is you create a really strong community or friends group. And if everyone had that, and they were comfortable in their own skins, and had like that internal frame and status, bringing it full circle to the beginning of this conversation, I think they would yell at the TV less. I think they would not let those things affect them as much if they were more if their subjective well-being was greater within themselves, right. This goes along with almost everything in life. Like, you usually project internal issues on other people that are around you. You project it on your boss, you project it on your even some friends, or you project it on the others, right? Like the left or the right. And usually the problem is within. I don't see people who are really happy with themselves get angry at
anybody,
at people they don't know.
People who are killing it, like, they're having a great life.
They're not angry, at people they don't know.
Yeah.
It's like people that are angry at people they don't know are angry at themselves.
Yeah, and they're wishing that their life was better, and they're also, maybe jealous, or projecting, looking for that other person, looking at that other person as like a scapegoat. And
right.
Sometimes you can be angry at your own life, or sad about your own life for things that are out of your control. Like, I totally get that, but what you can control is how you respond to things, I think.
Yeah, that's emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And like, you know, when you get knocked down, like, what are you going to do? You know, how are you going to get back up again? Or are you going to pull somebody else down with you?
Right.
And I think that's what like truly defines your character. I have a lot of friends right now from who I grew up with, from my hometown, you know, I you know, that I've been friends with since like high school and middle school and stuff. And they're currently, so this group of friends I haven't really been super in contact with over the years. I have two really good friends who are in this group, and they all keep in touch by playing video games together. They have a Discord server, and they play video games online with each other, because a lot of them moved away and all that. And I guess there's like a group of 20 of them, and I guess like most of them got laid off because of the coronavirus. And like what I'm seeing, just by being like tangentially related, I'm seeing that that a lot of them are very depressed. Not that they weren't already, but you know, it's getting worse, and it's letting them, you know, they're getting stressed about things that are political. And you know, stuff like they're posting up stuff in that Discord about like participating in a rent strike and doing this. And I talked to my friend, you know, a month and a half ago about this whole thing about the shelter in place and my stresses about it. And he's like, well, we're gonna strike on the rent. And I was like, well, have you talked to your landlord? And he's like, well,
Right.
no.
Oh,
I'm
man.
like, well, why don't you talk to your landlord and see if they can like be forgiving before you even force them to do something using governmental power or using some sort of, you know, other type of, you know, like a strike or something like that. Right? Like, you know, it's kind of sad
Wow.
that like you can't think about like the next step of how that can help you. You have to think about like, you know, about forcing somebody else to endure this, right? Like, let's say everybody, you know, every landlord should have to pay their property taxes, their insurance and everything, and not have the income from their properties. Now it's like it just trickles back up to like, it's still going to cause people pain, and you're just pushing the
Right.
pain onto somebody else temporarily. And like, if we're all in pain together, like, you might as well console each other and be like, hey, Mr. Mrs. Landlord, I'm actually going through a really rough time right now. I lost my job and all this. What can we do about this? Right. And
Right.
like, this is assertiveness 101, right? Like, this is inviting dialogue and saying, hey, I've got an issue and I need help. You know, what are the options here? And like,
Yeah. I think embedding the step of cooperation ahead of like us against them, or trying to get leverage, you know, over leverage someone, or get into battle mode, can really help. I mean, I had this conversation with our landlord and owners, and they've been, we you know, we live in this group, kind of, we work for living type situation down here, and we had this, and they were very understanding, and like we negotiated some stuff. And so cooperation is a great first step. You'd be really surprised how people will be willing, if you're kind and communicative with them, and caring, and like assertive, and respectably assertive, but exactly, inviting dialogue. I've gotten so many invites, and I've learned so many things just by taking that high road step before getting nasty, or going to the dark side, or using that. Right? It's like, you have that, and that primal emotional need always wants to fight and come out and win. But if you can control that, you'd be a force to be reckoned with communication. So
yeah. And it's like taking it as a community first kind of thing, right? It's like, you're looking at your landlord and as somebody who's a part of your community, and you have a symbiotic relationship versus looking at your landlord as some sort of leech on you, or like, or somebody who's got a power position because they have money or because they have capital or whatever. Like looking at, or like business owners, or like the buzzword to throw around as something negative is a CEO nowadays, right? Like you see that on social media. People are like, the CEOs, if we just tax them more, we people would be able to afford stuff. And this is like, no, what? Like these are like, if you, obviously these people have never owned a business.
Right.
Nor do they know enough about like tax laws and like personal finance that like Jeff Bezos does not have billions of dollars in the bank, like
Right.
But like the idea of like thinking of things adversarially, when you can think about it, it's like, okay, well, this person is like winning in some sort of way and I want to be a part of this. Or maybe that we have this relationship that there's now a tension that is outside of ourselves, right? Like there's this coronavirus thing, I got laid off from my job, and it's outside of the relationship between me and my landlord. Well, now I need to bring this up to that person so that I can work something out. This is a cooperative relationship rather than because that's what it is. Once you get into a contract with that person, like it's a cooperative relationship. It's not, they're going to provide you the place to live and you're going to provide them money. Well, if something happens where you can't provide them money anymore, you can provide some sort of other value. You can make a negotiation, make an agreement. You can, they might be able to work with you, and you don't know that until you try it.
Right.
And if they're a total asshole, then like, I'm sorry, but not
There's
everybody.
plenty of services you can offer.
Yeah.
To get the rent covered. All right. And on that note, I think that's part 1 of our series.
Yeah. We didn't even get to